Hello and welcome to another great episode of the Optimize Show. I am David Mammano, your host. Every Wednesday morning, new shows with great leaders sharing best practices like our guest today, Michael Taylor. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, Mike, you said I'd call you Mike.
Yes.
Mike, so you guys are going to love this guest. You know why? One of everybody's favorite restaurants, Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Michael is the franchise owner here in Rochester, right?
Yes.
And so I met you a few weeks ago with another program. I got to hear your story.
Yes.
I loved it. So much passion. So many optimized best practices.
Yes.
We got to capture some of this. So thanks so much for making the time.
Thank you for inviting me. It's definitely a pleasure to be here. I look forward to sharing my story, and it's just going to be a lot of fun today.
Well, you're a great leader. You're very inspiring, and you're humble.
Yeah.
So just who we want to have on the show. So I want to start out with, a lot of people don't know the full story of how Chick-fil-A started.
Yes.
With the owner's very humble roots.
Yes.
I believe it was a restaurant in his backyard, right?
Yes.
That someone would show up and he'd run and make the sandwich.
Yes. So our founder, Truett Cathy, God rest his soul, Truett, when he was young, it actually started, his entrepreneur spirit started when he was young. He used to sell bottle caps, newspapers, just because he knew if he wanted to get things, he had to become an entrepreneur and actually sell it. And so, and when he first opened, it was the dwarf house that he had, that him and his brother started, because they wanted to be in a restaurant business. And unfortunately, his brother actually passed away wasn't able to see the full fledge of everything. Yeah. And so True, when he started, the Dwarf Grill had it had burgers and many things you can think of. And Truett actually said, hey, what is one product that he could really maximize off of? Mm-hmm. And he remembered certain things that his mother used to tell him about the ingredients, things of that sort. And when it comes to the chicken, and so he realized, man, if I had a filet, take the bone out, put all of these ingredients that my mother taught me, I could actually have a really good sandwich. And so what he had in the story you were saying, when he had the Dwarf Grill, he actually had a house that was adjacent to it. And the Dwarf Grill is vastly different. They had many remodels from the way that it used to be, but it used to have this rocky road. Mm-hmm. And the story in his book, Eat More Chicken, Inspire More People, is one of my favorite books of his. But he talks about how he used to actually be in his house, he would have the window up, and if he heard somebody going on the dirt road, he'd jump right on out, come right over, and actually serve them food. And so as time went on, he really took at the chicken sandwich, and he played around with different names. Do I want to call it a chicken sandwich? No. A chicken breast sandwich? No. And then he actually said the Chick-fil-A sandwich. And so he started to move around with the different names, how he wanted to spell it. And so if you look at any Chick-fil-A, the A at the very end will always be capitalized. Mm-hmm. And the reason being is because he said it gives us grade A quality that we want to make sure all of our guests were able to experience. And so Truett has actually made it to where, and a lot of people say, well, you're closed on Sundays. And so Truett, imagine waking up in the middle of the night, going over to serve people.
Because he was 7 days a week, 24/7.
7 days
right?
a week, 24/7. You could only imagine. And he eventually started to get tired.
Sure.
And so Truett was very big on going to church on Sundays. So he just basically said, hey, you know what? The 7th on Sunday would just be my day of rest. And that just basically has stuck with Chick-fil-A till today. It's something that we always abide by. And so as he got older, his oldest son, he had 2 sons and a daughter. His oldest son, Dan, actually took over the business. His other son, Bubba, actually is over different areas of the business, but Dan became the CEO. And Dan actually, I believe it was about 3-4 years ago, he actually transitioned out to where now his son, Andrew, is now the CEO of Chick-fil-A. And everybody is always extremely humble when it comes to the Cathy family. So that's borderline the story of Chick-fil-A in a nutshell. But I always tell people, read Eat More Chicken, Inspire More People, because that book is where I always say helped me to get me to where I am today, to truly understand it.
It's not only great food. There's a lot of inspiration and leadership with the whole brand.
Correct.
And
Correct.
That book, which I have to read, thanks for reminding me.
Yes.
Seems really incredible to really inspire more people.
Yes.
Just to lead better lives of character, integrity, and leadership. Right.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So now we'll get right to you. And so you and your brother
Yes.
here in Rochester, New York, own two huge, very successful locations.
Yes. Yes.
And it's not really it's kind of a franchise. It's like, but it's a kind of a custom model, right?
Yeah, so I always like to tell people it's definitely different from a lot of people that I talk to when they want to become Chick-fil-A owner-operators or franchisees. A lot of people perceive it as almost like how McDonald's is or Taco Bell, where, hey, I can say, this is where I want my McDonald's, or this is where I want my Taco Bell, and I have to put forth millions or 500 grand or whatever it might be. But that's pretty much it. Like, hey, they'll put it up, and then there's really no real interaction. With Chick-fil-A, it's more of, hey, there's a whole interviewing process, and the interviewing process is one of the things that people have said when it comes to statistically with Chick-fil-A's interviewing process, it's easier to become an NFL first-round draft pick than it is to become a Chick-fil-A owner-operator because the interviewing process is so tough, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But what Chick-fil-A is very much looking for is, are you going to be involved within the community? And so when they're looking at different franchises, that's the first question they're trying to ask. Now, when we have to do the franchise fee, a lot of people are like, oh, I hear it's only $10,000. Yes, but like you have to go through the interviewing process to get to that point.
Right.
But then
huge filter.
Yes, it's a huge filter. And once again, I've talked with probably quarterly, so every 3 months I might talk with 4 to 5 people that are like, hey, I'm in the process. And then I never see them again, just because I don't know how maybe they got told no or anything of the sort. And so, but then once you're in, and once again, Chick-fil-A will say, hey, look, this is where we have stores available. Where do you think? So it's not really saying like, hey, I want to be here. It's more of, this is what Chick-fil-A has available.
Right.
And so you kind of have to go with what they're saying. But from there, a lot of the nuances, so like if a machine breaks down, there's a partnership there. If there's things legally that goes on, there's a partnership there. Yeah. There's more of a partnership, and there's more of, I can call people, hey, give me advice on marketing, give me advice on drive-through play, give me advice on these things. There's more partnership there than compared to a lot of the other fast food restaurants. When it comes to that owner-operator or franchisee models, there's more partnerships when it comes to Chick-fil-A, where I'm very thankful to be able to say I got Big Brother over here to help me in different limelights. So, but it's very where Chick-fil-A treats you as the CEO. So there's a lot of decision making. So my organizational chart for leadership is vastly different from my brother's, and from other operators is vastly different. The way that I train is going to be vastly different. But the one thing that we will say is very consistent is our Chick-fil-A sandwich, our product that we're going to sell, and being open and being closed on Sundays. So those are the things that we'll say is consistent.
That is a must.
Yes.
That's fantastic. So it's a very intentional strategy of quality over quantity.
Exactly.
And it's almost, like you said, very competitive to be able to run a store and get a franchise.
Yes. So it's something that I definitely don't take lightly. It's something that I definitely wear as a badge of honor. And then my mother and my father are definitely very happy parents to be able to say they have 2 Chick-fil-A franchisees. And so
they're like, we've done something right.
Yes, exactly. And so that's something where I think that I always tell people that my dad, he's military, and so that was something. Seeing him get up early in the morning, I tell people he would get up at 4 in the morning. He would go to work by 5, get home at 5 in the afternoon. Wow. He would sit in his chair. Football's on TV, basketball's on TV, and then he'd get up at 7 p.m., iron his clothes, do it all again. And so there was a certain work ethic that me, my brother, and then my older sister, we all have been accustomed to seeing when it comes to him, and then even when it comes to my mother, her work ethic. So very happy and very happy parents, I guess you could say.
No, they got to be very, very proud. So that's excellent. So, and they, the Optimize show, as parents, they say, we've optimized our kids, right?
Yes. And I definitely could say, say that. And so it's also cool now to be able to see how my nieces and my nephews now are all getting like, okay, so Uncle Mike or Uncle Alan, or they were able to do this. And so now they're attempting to replicate it. And my brother's oldest nephew, it's just weird because I remember changing his, like seeing him in his diapers and such. And so when he comes to my store now, and he'll sit there and he'll be like, okay, Uncle Mike, let's talk about like, how would you handle this situation? How do you develop this? And so to actually see where the family now is actually being bought in, and my nephew, he now wants to be an operator. So that's something that's very fun and cool to actually see.
It's like a mini dynasty within a bigger dynasty.
Exactly.
Right?
And you know what? That's a beautiful way of putting it. That's something that is very nice of putting it. I never really thought about it like that, but that's really cool because it is very telling. You know, for the longest I was known as the chicken uncle, like you know, and then when my brother and then my brother got bit with the bug of Chick-fil-A, and so it's just cool to see how it all now has transpired.
Yeah. So what I love the fact, Chick-fil-A corporate has optimized, so many strategies and processes for everybody, but then they also allow you, as you said, to be the CEO of your store, right?
Yeah.
And so you get to optimize, kind of the way you do, the way you see that things should be done.
Yes.
So for you, what are some of the things that you're really proud of that you lead with to make sure that from soup to nuts, everything's going well at the store?
Yeah, so I think the one of the first things that, and I always like to say my model, my leadership style, I call it the CEO, which means complete employee ownership. And so for me, I probably more than most would say I give a lot more autonomy to my team. So not even just my director level, but literally to my team members. Yeah. And so for me, it ultimately starts with that of being able to say, I trust you all to be able to go into my business and to be able to run this business and to be able to notice certain things to make a difference in people's lives. So like if somebody was to notice like a customer and they were able to like say, hey, I noticed you're got a tattoo and I really like your tattoo. Like we celebrate that because you didn't have to do that, but you went above and beyond to do that. Yeah. So those are certain things where I like where my team takes ownership of. But one of my most proud things that we have probably optimized is the way that we develop all of our leaders. Yeah. And so what do I mean by that is it was about 2 years ago, myself and the general manager who I had at the time, Emmanuel, we sat down and we just basically asked the question, man, our leadership is not as strong as we would have liked. There's a lot of things that are missing. There's a lot of things that are not happening. And so how do we get that to where it's very like where everybody is where we want it to be, where everybody is very intentional, they have the right capacity, things of that level. And so we actually sat down with a lot of my leadership and we just started to ask different questions. What do you feel like did it make you successful? What do you feel like made you successful? It took a lot of input and it took us maybe like a solid month of just sitting down and writing it all out, and we came up with what we call the launch program. So there's 3 stages: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And so with each one of those, we're able to say, hey, if we see little Joey, hey, little Joey, we feel like you could be in the launch program. So the first thing, they get their nice certificate that says, I'm gonna join launch. Everybody, we make it a big deal, so we shake like bells, all this stuff. Yeah. But then they actually go through anywhere between a 4-week to a 6-week program. Some, the advanced classes more so with me, the intermediate is typically with the general manager, and then the beginner classes is gonna be with one of the managers or assistant managers. And they go through it from understanding not just, hey, the operation piece of the business. And that's probably where I failed at in the very beginning, is because for me in leadership, I was very much like, okay, you have to learn the operation piece, but I did not think about the character piece. And so I think a lot of times that when people talk about developing leaders or selecting leaders, we go more of, hey, can you do the job? Instead of asking the question of, hey, do I want you to be around the people that I have a part of this business? And do you know how to talk to them? Do you know how to communicate? Do you know how to pull the best out of people? And so now when I'm able to sit here and I can say, like, we have a launch class almost every single quarter. And so when I sit here, we have anywhere between 10 to 12 people that might go in there and actually come out. The success rate right now is at 100%, thank God. But it's at 100% success rate where people go in and then when they come out, they're able to do many different things. And so when we talk about the complete employee ownership, now not only have I equipped you with the knowledge on the operation piece, but I've also equipped you of being able to understand, hey, if I'm talking with this person, I might have to communicate different with him than I would with this person over here.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about optimizing, that's how like I feel like that's probably one of my most proud aspects of being able to say, hey, within my business, I needed to look at my leadership team and say, when it comes to their development, I needed to take it to another level. How do I expand upon this more? And then from there, now that they feel equipped with it, a lot of the systems and processes and procedures now is that much easier because I understand it. I can easily communicate it to the other team members, and it's very simple.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you and your brother, I mean, you're no joke. We're here in Rochester, New York, which by all standards is not a large city. Say we're a good medium-sized city, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we punch a little bit harder than our weight. But when your brother opened up the store in Greece, New York, a suburb of Rochester, what happened?
It was probably the most unexpected thing that happened. And so I joke about it. I've been doing this, September will be 19 years I would have been with Chick-fil-A. And one of the previous jobs when I worked for corporate was to be in charge of grand openings. So I've been in Georgia, I've been in Kansas, I've been in Iowa, I've been all over the country. When I went to my brother's opening, and I believe he opened in April of 2018, I had never seen anything like that, from the drive-through lines to the people waiting on the side. And the funny thing is a lot of the corporate people that were there, they said they did it. They had never experienced anything like it, nor did they expect it from this little area, this little town. They did not expect it. And so from there, it obviously created a domino effect for when my location opened. The number one question is, hey, what is the drive-thru going to look like? And so Chick-fil-A went through a whole plan, and I think also when the town knew that it was somebody that had Chick-fil-A experience, they felt a little bit more comfortable. And actually on grand opening day, I pulled an audible. I guess it could be deemed as taboo, but I pulled an audible because the original plan that we had was for if I could say that I think that they thought that my team couldn't handle it. And so what I started to see is that my team could handle it. And so we were able to switch up the drive-through plan literally on grand opening day. And when we switched it up, it actually optimized a lot. It was that we were able to get more cars in drive-through, more cars out, to where a lot of the tenants, where they were worried that their areas are going to be blocked off, it actually wasn't. And so they were very happy. And I think it also translated because a lot of the people in the town have actually come and said, hey, make sure you talk with when Aronquit opened. They wanted to see how we did things.
You're the template, right?
Yes, so it all worked out. But definitely my brother's opening wasn't something that was expected.
At the time, was it the largest grand opening
ever? It was the largest grand opening when it comes from the sales perspective that had really ever been done. And it was.
I mean, the drive-thru was like miles, right?
It was I'm always shocked when I think about it, just because I remember one of the last people that was in his drive-thru when it had closed at closing time. They said she had said she waited 2 hours. And I sat there and I started thinking about that.
So we're out of gas, right?
And I was just like, I started thinking about that. I'm like, that is something, as many openings that I've been to, as many operators that I've talked to,
that's dedication.
I had never seen anything from the drive-through to, we had to pull an audible, get cones and make a snake way for people to get inside the store, to actually his mobile area. It was just so many people. And my brother, I say all the time, he was very much not into the sales. He did not want to know the sales. I was very curious on the sales, but he did not want to know the sales. He was only interested in was every guest being taken care of and was his team being taken care of. And that's all he wanted to know. I kept asking him, hey, do you want to know the sales? He would say no. And it was about...
He knew that what he was focusing on would take care of the sales.
Yes, and so that's where his heart is always, is always on his people. And I always say me and him are different, but one of his traits that I'm trying to develop more is that my brother knows every single person that he comes in contact, he will always remember you.
Yeah.
And it's something to me because I'm very much where I'm like, man, like you will go and you'll shake hands with somebody like just out in the street, but he will always remember them and he'll always say something. And so when it comes to his team, that is something that he very much, and you know, he doesn't like boast about it, but that's something where I look at him and I'm like, wow, I can take care of that. Like I need to learn that.
Well, you
too.
can learn from each other. I'm sure.
Exactly.
I'm sure you're doing things. He's like, hey, I could do that better too.
Yes,
So,
yes,
yeah,
and that's a beauty of it to be
Yeah.
able to say, hey, I have a person that's right up the street from me that is able to like bounce ideas off of.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, I have a lot of friends that are operators, but to actually say I have a family member who's an operator,
Yeah.
it gives a little bit more of a conversation where it's like,
you
hey,
truly care about it.
yeah, like you know, how did you do this and such, and so
Yeah, I imagine you're competitive, but at the same time, you also want to help each other. Right?
yeah, so my brother, I'm probably more the competitive one.
Yeah.
He's my brother is actually one of the top guy. I believe he is probably still the top guy within all of Chick-fil-A. And so you're talking about 3,000 plus stores. I think they said it's a little over 2,500 operators, I believe that what they were saying. And so my brother, he goes back and forth between this one gentleman we always laugh with. He goes back and forth between 1 and 2, but I think he was number 1 for almost like the whole time.
Wow.
And so it's humbling for me to be able to go to him and say, okay, how did you do this?
Yeah.
How did you do this? Like, I want to learn from the best so I can ultimately beat the best.
Right.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
I always joke, Kobe Bryant, Mamba mentality.
Yeah,
And
he's
so,
leaving a little something behind, right?
yeah. And so it's very, you know, he comes from a baking background, and so it's always humbling when I can talk with him and be able to say, hey, how do you do this?
Yeah.
And, you know, he'll do the same thing when it comes to me, when it comes to certain things that I do. And while I might have 19 years experience, I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And it's very clear that he's obviously doing something right. So, hey, what are you doing? What can I take from that? And then how can I apply it to my business?
Yeah. I also want to address that I have a personal experience with the effects of your leadership.
Yeah.
Because a few weeks ago I was there for a kind of a tour with another group.
Yeah.
And I told my kids that I was going to Chick-fil-A, and they were like, "Dad, you got to bring some home." And you know, I thought we were all going to be meeting in the restaurant,
Yeah.
but we were meeting across the parking lot a little
Yeah.
bit in your corporate office.
Yeah.
And so you finished your speech, which was great, and you were giving free food to everybody.
Yes.
And I got up, and I was going to go across the street to get some stuff for my kids.
Yeah.
Now, your manager, Mackenzie,
Yes.
she saw me. She said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Oh, I told my kids I'd bring back some stuff, you know." "Well, what do they want?" I said, "I'm just going to get, 3 sandwiches and 3 fries."
Yeah.
And she's like, "You go sit down. I got it." And I was like, no,
Yeah.
And she's like, so I go to give her my credit card. She's like, "I got it."
Yes.
And I was just like, and I fought her a little bit, I'm
Yeah,
like, no, but she won.
Yes.
And I just thought like, that, what did that cost you? 3 sandwiches, 3 fries? I'm telling everybody. I'm like, it was so incredible.
Yeah.
And that you empowered her
Yes.
to be able to do that. Like
Yes.
she just knew that was going to be okay.
Yes.
Right. So, we talked about great leaders create more leaders, and
Yes.
that's what you're doing.
We say great leaders. I always one of the contexts we say is great leaders serve.
Mm-hmm.
And so serve, we break down see and shape the vision, embody the values, reinvent continuously, value relationships and results. And so it really breaks a lot of things down. And so when you say great leaders serve, what does serve look like?
Mm-hmm.
And so things of that nature is something where my guys know Mr. Mike is going to get up and he'll clean the bathrooms if he needs to. But also, if you're struggling, like with anything, so I had a team member one time, and she didn't tell me because she was newer to the team, and she was a new mother. And I was just over in my office, over in our, what I like to call the Chick-fil-A Henrietta herd headquarters. So I was in my office over there, and one of my guys actually came over and they were like, "Hey, have you heard that like she had no heat in her house?" And I'm thinking to myself, wait, what? Like they were talking and they were like, yeah, she didn't have any heat in her house, and it was going on almost a week where she couldn't find ends meet, and I just stopped what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is she here today? And they were like, yeah, she's over there. And I'm like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
And so I walked right over there, pulled her to the side, and I was like, hey, is this true? And she said, yeah. And I'm like, and don't you have a newborn? And she said, yeah. And I said, okay, so this is what I need you to do. I need you to go ahead, take a couple seconds, and you call whoever you need to call. And you figure out what you need to do to get your heat on.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, Mr. Mike, I don't have the money for it. And I'm like, hey, I didn't tell you about money or anything. I'm telling you, I need you to go and call these people. Whenever the bill comes, you give it to me.
Yeah.
And then from there, I also want you to know, I'm going to call one of the hotels, the DoubleTree, that's right up the street from her. And I said, I'm going to call that place, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to book you a room for you and your family.
Yeah.
I'm going to cover it. If they can't come out this week, if they can't come out next week, it's fine. I'll cover the whole room. I'm going to cover it, but you're not going to be in a cold house. You're not going to be in a cold house.
Wow. Yeah.
And
she probably cried, right?
Oh yeah. There's but there's multitudes of stories, and so for me, it's always leading by example.
Yeah.
And for me, it's very simplistic to just, and I always say that the way that the world is, I think we just need to go back to that's just a human response.
Yeah.
Let me help you.
Yeah.
I hear you're struggling in this particular area. Let me help you.
Yeah.
It's just about being a human. You know what I mean? And so I think with my team, when they see me doing that, going above and beyond,
that's contagious.
And that's something where I'm just very proud that they can they get the bug, And so when you tell me stories about Mackenzie, and I was very proud when I put her in that general manager role, because I knew that Emmanuel took the business to a certain extent, and then he was able to go off and keep pursuing his dream within corporate. And so now Mackenzie, it's her turn, and it's very humbling moment to see her lead, but then it's even more satisfying to me when I can hear stories of this where she's, whether it's guests or even team members, she's helping just almost in the same way I would. You know what I mean? So it's great to hear those stories.
Well, that's when they know that it's a lot more than just chicken.
Yes. Right. Truett used to say, "Hey, we're not in the chicken business. We're in the people business."
Yeah.
And I tell my guys all the time, the sandwich, the product itself, is the gatekeeper to be able to say, "Hey, how's your day going?"
Yeah.
Because you never know. And we always say everybody has a story, so you never know when people come in and what they might be going through. I've had plenty of times where customers might come in, and when the customers come in, they might be irate and things of that nature. And my team members can get upset about that.
Sure.
And I say it all the time. Look, they got upset over a small fry.
Yeah.
Clearly, it wasn't about the small fry.
Yeah.
There's other things going on. So while yes, you might be upset at what they said, understand that there's other things going on for them. Say a prayer for them, but we'll keep it moving. And more times than not, surprisingly, is more where people will actually come back and be like, "Hey, look, I know I was a jerk that day. I apologize. If the team member's here, hey, can you please give them this card where it's apologizing," anything of the sort. So I think that, we have to look at it. And like I said, the product is one thing, but I think it's the gatekeeper to be able to touch many lives in many different ways.
Yeah. Well, I want to end this interview with a story that you told when we were talking beforehand.
Yeah.
And really, I'm going to say, getting back to the word optimize, it's something that happened to you, that happened to your friend, that affected your perspective.
Yes.
So something happened that allowed you to optimize your perspective. And I'd love for you to share that story because it's just so powerful.
Yeah, so, and I'm assuming you're talking about Jimmer.
Yeah.
So one of my jobs that I had prior to becoming an operator was I worked for corporate, and I was going around, we call it a grand opening supervisor. So I was basically going around to different Chick-fil-A's when they were about to open. I was in charge of making sure whatever the operator wanted, his vision, I had to basically help. But I also was making sure all the vendors knew where to go, setting all that up for the operator. And actually, my last assignment that I had was in Syracuse Cicero with Jimmer. And Jimmer was he's a very fit man, and he was running miles almost on a daily basis. Super Buffalo Bills fan, and so it was. Jimmer was just he was a very in shape, athletic man, and so he's won different awards within Chick-fil-A, and he also had. There was one day though where he just felt like, man, I'm tired, and he said he just thought maybe he had COVID, just as simple as that. It was during that COVID time, and that's what he thought. I just had COVID, but he said he knew something was wrong just because he would go through the airport. and he said he couldn't make it all the way. He would just be tired. So he said, man, COVID is really coming back and hurting him.
Yeah.
And so he went and he actually went to a doctor, and the doctor told him it's not COVID. Keep in mind, Jimmer had just got selected for a second location, which getting selected for a second location is very stressful, like as you can imagine. And when the doctor told him, hey, it's not COVID, we want to run a few more tests. And unfortunately, they found out and they diagnosed him with ALS. And so it was something where knowing Jimmer, and also like in that moment, he got diagnosed, and then I think it was the very next day or the next week, his second store opened. And so he had to put on a nice, smile while also understanding what was potentially happening with him. And so that was about, I believe it was 2 years ago. And I just was able to see him recently. And when I saw him, he's actually in a chair now, and, he can't raise his fingers all the way. And when he talks, it's very much where he's mouthing the words to where you actually have to read his lips.
Yeah.
And so one of the things as operators we always say is always remember your why. Why do you do certain things? Why are you in this position? Because at the end of the day, when it becomes hard for you, you can always go back to your why. One of my whys is, hey, I always like to, help kids and give back to the community and things of that sort. Yeah. But when I talk with Jimmer and I see him now, and he's, still has his faith, and he's still, running stores, and he still has a smile on his face. And the one thing that he says is, he would pay any amount of money to be able to, hug his kids again. And so it puts things in perspective for you as a business owner to be able to say, man, I'm sitting here and I might be getting mad because a catering order got out late. Well, that's not as important, because there's this man over here who's dealing with something that's on a different level, and he still has faith, he's still smiling, he's still doing all of this, and yet you're going to get mad about this, and so it really helps puts a lot in perspective. And so when my brother and I talk about it, that's something that, if I'm ever having like a bad day and I might be like venting to my brother, that is something that we will say, what,
we can still hug each other.
Yeah, we can still hug each other. And, Jimmer is like another brother to me, and be able to say, he would do anything to deal with your problems. Yeah. And so when you really think about that, it really makes everything so small. Yeah. So that's why nowadays, you have tough days, but I'm able to smile that much more. I'm able to move past it that much more, just because I understand that there are other things that are going on in this world. There's other things that people are going through that they are able to say, hey, I'm happy about, or I'm still smiling about. So you can put things to the side and let your anger or whatever go away. So it definitely helps put things in perspective as business owners, where you can just say, hey, you know what? Just stay positive always.
Yep. You start to get upset about something and just, move into gratitude instead, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Well, that's amazing. That's and you're only 33.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what you've done so far. Yeah. And I'm so glad I met you, because I want to continue to watch the journey.
Yes.
So
yes.
I feel like there's more exciting things to come.
Yes. We've got a lot of positives going. Obviously, we have the Henrietta location. Last year, October, we opened up our little pop-up stand in Blue Cross Arena, and then we actually just partnered now with Rochester Red Wings. So there's a lot of positives that are coming. But overall, we're just excited. We're just excited to be here. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited always to go to schools and talk with people about my journey, and just talk about hey, anybody and everybody can do this, but you got to stay focused with it,
Yeah, I love it. What's the name of that book again?
Eat More Chicken, Inspire More People.
That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. Michael, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I appreciate it. Not only for supplying great chicken to the Rochester area, but just doing great things to inspire and make a difference in our community. So really appreciate you.
It's my pleasure.
Allison, we'll have you back in a year. We'll talk about even more franchises.
Yes, there we go.
I don't know, maybe you'll be at corporate by then, right?
Yes. I mean, that might be something too, but definitely that'll be great. Maybe we can even see if my brother
we'll get your brother to come next time too.
Yes, there you go.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, Michael. We really appreciate it. Wish you continued success.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for watching another great episode with Michael and the Optimize Show. Appreciate you. Every Wednesday morning, a new episode. Thanks again. Spread the word, share this, like it. You know what to do. Have a great day and make sure to stay awesome.